the lady literally goes like, she's, I can't, why am I crying? Your flight's been delayed an hour. If you go now, you can still make it.
Such a God thing.
And I'm just like, what?
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a very special guest here with me. This is Landon, by the way. If you aren't familiar with him, very surprised, but this is Landon. We are gonna do a relationship Q&A and go through a ton of questions that you guys submitted. I currently have a list of about 20 of them, so we'll see how many we can get through today. But we're super stoked. I know a lot of you guys have had a lot of questions about our relationship, and today is the day that those are gonna be answered. Question number 1, how did you meet? Was it love at first sight or nah?
You want me to answer this one?
Yeah.
She fell in love. She fell to the ground. She was just, she saw me and she...
Okay, that's actually not too far from the truth though. The second time we met, I did end up on the floor.
When? Oh yeah!
It's true.
That was the first time.
Okay, so the first time we met, I did end up on the floor. Okay, so we met at Bethel School of Ministry in Northern California, and we were both students there, but we didn't meet until like 2 months into school. We'd never seen each other at class, like in school ever.
Oh, I saw you.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Nuh-uh, really?
No.
But we were both in the same music class. We were in what was called a city service, which was basically our way of like serving the city. And ours was to play live music around different like venues and restaurants and bars around town once a week. So we were both in that same class. You walked in and I was like...
looking fly.
Well, what's funny is I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, you were wearing a tank top. In my head, I saw tattoos, tank top, and 2 seconds into like him talking to me, I heard like that he was like a Southern California surfer boy, and I was like, not what I was thinking in my head I wanted. But it was not love at first sight for me, but I did, when he walked in, I was like, oh, he's cute. But it was just one of those like appreciation from a distance. Me ending up on the floor was, we each had to play a song that first day in class. We had to like have a song prepared, which is what we'd done to audition to get into the class. And he played one of the most powerful worship songs that God had used in my life to wreck me for like 2 years. It was my word. For like 2 years that the Lord had just taught me, and he steps up to the mic. And I mean, if you guys haven't heard Landon sing, he is the most anointed worship leader and singer that I have ever heard, ever. And he stepped up to the mic and started singing this song, and I ended up within like a minute or two, I was on my face, like in that class, like worshiping the Lord. The whole class was like, so I did end up on the floor. Was it love at first sight for you?
I still remember like when you walked into class, you were wearing blue jeans like rolled up with some, I don't know if it was like a shirt or a blouse, and you had on your brown boots.
I did.
And you looked beautiful. But I didn't talk to like all the other girls at all. Like there was like a handful of girls, but for whatever reason I was drawn to you, and I felt like the urge to just talk to you and get to know you. And I remember like I was joking around with you. Like I said, like if you could choose, like that's so me looking back at it.
Yeah.
But I was like, if you could choose between the mountains or the beach, where would you live? And if you had to wear like flip-flops.
I think he asked if you had to wear hiking boots or high heels, what would you pick? And
yeah,
I was like
did.
hiking boots any day.
Yeah. And I don't know, like I don't know what sprouted that conversation besides just seeing her and like being drawn to her. And then I started asking you those questions, and it wasn't even like getting at you in a flirty way. I was just like truly intrigued, and maybe there was some flirting there. But it was like I just wanted to get to know you.
Yeah.
And it was so random, but so beautiful, and that kind of like developed a friendship.
Yeah.
And then the rest is history. We started hanging out. She rejected me. She came back.
Question number 2. What's your story?
I feel like we've had a really beautiful story, and it's been really complex, and there's been a lot of different seasons of our story. Like looking back to the first season of our story, the first time that we met, feels like a whole different lifetime. It feels like a dream.
Yeah.
our story started when we were up north in Northern California ministry school. And then through that, like just developing a friendship and getting to know one another, I think like the more time you spend with someone, you're naturally going to be drawn to them and want to be with them. And the more time you spend with them, the more attached and the more like affection you feel for that person. And I think like with our class that we had together, we started spending all this time together, and I found myself around you like and really desiring to be around you more. And so I finally like came up with the courage to ask you out, and then you said no.
Really harshly.
And that's the end of the story. No, I'm just kidding. No, but in all seriousness, we started hanging out a lot, and I thought she was incredible, and I thought she was beautiful, and she loved Jesus, and she was talented, and did I say she was beautiful? Along with everything else. And we'd been hanging out and spending time together, and I was like, hey,
he was coming to my gigs.
Yeah.
That was the point where I was like, wait, is this guy into me? Because he kept coming to my like shows every week.
But yeah, we started spending a lot of time together. Kind of naturally got to this point where it came that we had to be like, hey, what are we doing? And what's our intention? And I pretty much sent you a text, and I was like, hey, I really enjoy being with you. I really like spending time with you. I would really like to pursue you. A whole bunch of other amazing, incredible things that I said. But she said no. She's like, aw, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. But no.
I was like, I think I was so savage. I think I even said, like, I'm not romantically attracted to you.
You did.
Like, how brutal is that? But okay.
It was so honest and straightforward and refreshing.
But let me also explain and clarify. At that point in the school year, I think it was like 3 or 4 months into school at that point, and something with like the ministry school environment is very much like a lot of people are there to find a very like-minded, passionate about Jesus spouse. And so by that point in the school year, I'd had, I think like 4 or 5 other guys ask to pursue me. And so by the time Landon sent that message, I was so over it. Like if you asked my roommate when that message came through, I was laying on my bed, saw the message, looked over at her and went, you've got to be freaking kidding me. Like I was so over it at that point. And so my message was just like, yo,
nah,
I am not looking for anything. I'm sorry. Like, no.
So she said no to me, and then it was fine. Like we went on our way. We were still friends. Like
Yeah.
I saw you the next day or the day after that, and
We still had class together.
yeah, and we were cool, and there was no awkwardness or like hard feelings, at least on my side. Like I was like, all right, whatever. She said no, we can move on.
I just felt bad because I think when I answered, I definitely answered out of a place of a lot of frustration. And I like came up to him and was like, hey, I feel really bad. Like I would love to be friends. Like how about we get coffee and just like.
That was her being like, I like you, but I didn't even know I liked you.
I didn't know I liked him at that point.
But she's like, I like you.
But I was like, I feel bad. Like, let's just go get coffee and like we can just like be friends and have a one-on-one conversation. And then we got coffee.
And she thought it was like the hottest date of her life. It was her first date ever.
First date in my head.
And I thought it was just hanging out and getting coffee.
I literally went up to him and clarified and was like, hey, let's get coffee as friends. And then in my head, I think I was like, okay, this is a date. And I, of course, didn't communicate that to him because why would you do that? And I walked in, and I think one of the first things I said to you was, like, we were talking, sitting at the table, and then finally I was like, okay, I just got to get this off my chest. I'm really nervous. Are you, like, uncomfortable on this date right now?
You were so nervous. It was so sweet. You were so nervous. And I wasn't, only because I didn't think I didn't think it was a date. I thought we were just hanging out. Like, she had already broken my heart, and so I was already like, I'm friend zoned forever. Oh. And so I had no nervousness inside of me, but you said that.
I was freaking out before that coffee date because in my head it was a date. I was like sprinting around the house, like running circles around the house, like going up to her being like, do I smell okay? Can I borrow your perfume? I need to smell good. I was like really nervous.
When we were on that date, not date, kind of date, she thought a date, I was chilling, friend zone date thing. I remember just talking about life the same way that we did the first time we met, asking each other questions. There's always been that like belief and feeling inside of me of like, this is the girl that I was always meant to marry from the second we sat. Even like talking the first time when we walked into class.
What?
But that date, I think, I mean, it was like 4 years ago, but I'm sure like even from that first moment, like, you just embodied everything that I wanted in a woman and in a partner. And so I think, like, there's no even question about that. From the moment we sat down and had the serious conversation, it was like, yep, she's real. She's the real deal. And it was sweet. There's something special about when you have dreamed and grown up with this mindset of, like, I want somebody that loves Jesus with their whole heart, and somebody that's going to run around and go hiking, go exploring, go travel the world, get their feet dirty, get in the mud, I don't know, play music, surf, explore, love people, be a great mom, like, all these things. And then you sit with someone and they have it, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, this is crazy. Not that we were perfect or that I was perfect and you were perfect, but there was just certain traits where it was like, oh, okay, like, this might be God. And that was like 4 years ago, and yeah, it's crazy. Feel back to that moment, sitting there together.
We started dating, super sweet, super precious. We dated for, I think it was like 7 or 8 months. And we finished all of our school year together as a couple. I moved back to Ohio. He stayed in Northern California at that point. We were doing long distance for 3 months. We just hit a place where God was just super, super clear with both of us. It came very out of the blue for both of us, I think. Neither one of us were planning on it. And so that was part of what was so hard, was we wanted to stay together and we wanted to fight for each other, but it was so crystal clear that God was saying no, and that we needed time separately for God to really work in both of our hearts and prepare us for what he had for us. That was not even a question for us. It was the most painful thing I've ever gone through and I've ever done. But we had the Lord, and we had that clear understanding of, this is what God's telling us to do. And in my heart, that was all I needed, was like clarity from the Lord on, this is exactly what I'm asking you to do. Do you trust me? And in my heart, the answer was firmly yes. In spite of all the pain and in spite of all the uncertainty, it was yes. So we walked through a very difficult, very painful breakup. When we parted ways, I 100% knew we were done. Like, we were not getting back together. We were like, God was saying, you're done. I've had several people ask me the question of, like, how was that waiting period between your breakup and getting back together? And I was like, there was no waiting period. That was it. Like, that was finished, done, over, like, goodbye. We ended on good terms, but I did not see us getting back together.
For me specifically, like, we needed to go through more of our own healing.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like a season of kind of like eye-opening, when you're in seasons where you're doing so much and you're busy with work, and then all of a sudden you're forced to just stop and look around, and you realize, like, oh, I'm not doing very good. My heart's not in the best place. I needed to meet the Lord, and I needed him to meet me in a way that, like, he hadn't in a while. And I think it was affecting our relationship pretty heavily. At the end of the day, like, I think everyone has things that they have to work through and go through, and I think that that's okay. Like, seasons, like, life's not always like at the highest point of the mountain all the time. There's highs and low seasons. But I think in the season that we broke up, it was kind of a low season for me. It was a time where I had to look at everything and be like, where am I going? Where do I want to go? And how can I be the best boyfriend for you? A lot of people don't talk about, like, the hard things they go through publicly. Not that you should talk about everything, but to say, like, yeah, I went through a really hard season and it was rough and it affected people in my life. But to also share, like, the victory of, like, I went through that, but I chose to turn to Jesus and, like, run after him. Even when people make mistakes, or even though you go through a hard season and you're, like, unaware of where to go next, you can still look to Jesus and see, like, he's right there next to you. And that's really precious.
He texted me when I was in Italy, and I was, like, doing some shoots in Europe, and he was reading through my old letters that I'd written to him.
Yep.
And he sent me the sweetest text. And he was just like, I wanted to thank you for the way that you loved me in our relationship. That set a standard for me and changed the way that I love people. and the way that I view love. That really made like an impact on my life, and thank you for everything you did in our relationship. That was so out of the blue for me, and so just like it meant so much. That was about a year and a half after we'd broken up. It probably took me a year to feel like my heart was okay again, for me to feel like I was ready to move on. And so the fact that he texted me and I just felt peace and like nothing, like no pain, no like sinking feeling in my stomach, like nothing. It was just like, oh, Landon texted me. What did he say? That was just a sign to me of like, wow, I'm healed. Like I am fully healed from like that season and like everything that we walked through. And during that text, I was like, hey, I'm going to be in LA a couple times this fall. If you have any desire to like meet up, maybe go surfing or just grab like a coffee or something, like I'd love to see how you're doing. We ended up meeting up that fall and going surfing, and he brought his guitar to the beach.
Yeah.
And we sat at the beach and we sang together, and he played me a song that he had low-key written for me. He didn't tell me he'd written it for me. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
That's
So he played this song that was just like, I shouldn't have let you go, like, I miss you, or something like that. It was very...
My love, you've been gone for too long.
It was
like the melody of it.
So sweet.
Yeah.
I was like trying to, like, I was basically crying on the beach. And so there was like this like spark going off between us that I didn't expect. We like hang out the whole morning, afternoon, and like later evening. And we get back in his car, and I'm just like, I can't. So I lean over and I grab him and I kiss him. I made the move. And he was like not expecting that. He did not think that was coming.
Oh no.
And he's like, oh shoot.
Oh no. Oh no.
We had a conversation. We're like, okay, what was that? Like, what should we do here afterwards, after that date, hang out, whatever. And we just decided to pursue a friendship together. And so we were best friends. We slowly started working through stuff and like being in each other's lives, like phone calls, texts. I was still living in Ohio at that point. So we were just like became best friends again.
The beautiful time about that season was when we first started dating. I believe it was totally God that was leading us and carrying our relationship, but we didn't really spend a whole lot of time like truly getting to know each other as friends. We started like dating
like
right
away
off the bat for a few weeks, and then like intentionally in a serious relationship for another 8 months. If you guys don't know, Evie and I come from completely different backgrounds. Like she was homeschooled her whole life, grew up in the Midwest, didn't have the same experiences that I had.
V sheltered childhood, V not sheltered childhood.
Yeah, no, not very sheltered, and I was, born and raised in the West Coast, obviously.
SoCal.
And, just public school and exposed to a lot, and we were totally different. And so when we started dating, we didn't have time to really like go through those deep things and get to know each other as friends.
We did it as a couple, which was sweet.
Yeah.
But I think the foundation of any relationship needs to be friendship first. Like you need to be a friend with that person before you're ever like wildly in love with them. Like I think the friendship is so important.
Yeah, totally. And so being able to come back into each other's lives and like be best friends for like 6 months or however long it was, like a while, was really cool.
Just having that foundation heading into like round 2 of our relationship completely changed our relationship. He is my best friend before he is ever my boyfriend. It's pretty freaking special to be in love with your best friend. There's just such a solid foundation under us now that I don't feel was there the first time, and it's really special.
I think we should tell it.
Oh, tell it now?
I don't know.
Oh, this is gonna get juicy.
God, if you have like orchestrated this, and if this is something you want, like, oh, I'm gonna cry. Like, if this is what you want, God, like, open the doors and just like literally provide a miracle. And I remember praying like a few times, like, God, this has to be you.